Hi everyone, so my name is Taryn Wagner as a quick re-intro. This week we've been talking about modern fantasy. And modern fantasy is when something happens in a book that cannot necessarily happen in this world. So one of the biggest inclusions in modern fantasy is maybe a place will change, or maybe fantastical creatures or people will be included, or somebody suddenly bursts and gets superpowers. So that's traditionally what happens in modern fantasy. Now, with these modern fantasies, they can either be retellings of old stories, old traditional tales, or they can be high fantasy stories, which are usually set in a completely different world, totally based on its own magical rules. Today, though, I wanted to talk about a book that is based on a retelling of one of Hans Christian Andersen's famous stories, The Snow Queen. This book is called Breadcrumbs, and it's by Ursu. And it is about a young girl named Hazel, and she has been struggling in school after her parents have split up. And so she's very confused. She's going through a harsh time in her life. She's only in about 5th grade. And she is starting to undergo these different changes with going to a new school, having a new life with just her mom. And her best friend, Jack, is starting to kind of distance himself because they're kind of at that age where boys and girls don't really hang out unless they're boyfriend-girlfriend. And she's like, he ain't my boyfriend. So she is really trying to find stability. But in the meantime, her best friend Jack gets a cursed piece of glass stuck in his eye. And the Snow Queen takes him away to a magical land in the woods near their house. And because Hazel is brave and loves her friend, she decides to undertake this journey to go and rescue Jack from the Snow Queen. And this has been a super good book. It's definitely a kind of a darker retelling. I would recommend it for 10 and up. And I recommend it to your 10-year-old who's really, really chipper, because this book is about growing up really hard and really fast. And some of it's really, really sad. And the character herself is kind of depressing a little bit. But it's because she's undergoing such hard things. And so one of my favorite quotes from this book is, I'm going to have to read it off this piece of paper that I wrote down, is, Hazel had read enough books to know that a line like this one is the line down which your life breaks in two. Once you have to think very carefully about whether you want to cross it, because once you do, it's very hard to get back to the world you left behind. And sometimes you break a barrier that no one knew existed, and then everything you knew before crossing the line is gone. But sometimes you have a friend to rescue. And so you take a deep breath and then step over that line into the darkness ahead. And I really love this because it just this quote just covers what Hazel is. She wants to save her friend. She's brave. She may be going through hard things, but she has her priorities straight. She has somebody she needs to protect and somebody that she loves, and she's willing to do whatever it takes to protect them. And for me, this has been a great example of a good retelling of an old traditional classic. And it's really cool because it not only pulls from The Snow Queen, but it also pulls a lot from a few of the other Hans Christian Andersen stories. One of the most notable one is it pulls a scene from like the Little Match Girl. So when she's actually in the land rescuing Jack, there's just all of these cool and crazy references to the original story, and along with many of the other traditional tales. And there's a lot of good lessons about growing up, and also lessons about how not everything can be answered so easily. Just because you're growing up and getting older doesn't necessarily mean you're getting more answers like you hope. So I highly recommend this book if you're down for a kind of grittier retelling. I highly recommend it, and especially if a kid is feeling misunderstood and really needs some comfort, this book does, I think, provide that. And I highly recommend it to anyone who will watch it. And thank you so much for watching the video. Hope you have a great day and enjoy the selection on Modern Fantasy.